My name is Joe Zadowski. I'm the district administrator here in the school district of the Menomonie area. I'm absolutely impressed and encouraged. What a great thing to see so many people care about what's happening here in Menomonie. To see so many people care about the education of our kids. I have 3 children myself that are in our district, a 4th grader and 2nd grade twins. And to see this kind of excitement about education is just, gives you some chills. I wanted to make a couple more introductions before we get started. School board members, we have several of our school board members here tonight to observe. School board president Jay Fall, I see Jay back there if you want to wave. School board member Penny Burstead, she was moving chairs. School board member David Steyer. School board member Urs Haltener. School board member Dan Paulson. There's Dan. School board member Amy Riddle Swanson. I saw Amy. And in the midst of things, I don't know if I missed someone else coming in. Heather Clarendon, I did see Heather coming in. Welcome, Heather. Any other school board members here tonight? I'd also like to recognize some of the members of our administrative team who are with us here tonight. Our Director of Curriculum Instruction, Brian Seguin. We have several of our principals here. High school principal David Munoz, assistant principal Bart Betcher, and Samantha White from the high school. They were coming in and out tonight. They're also at the orchestra concert. Mrs. Everson, Mrs. Stacy Everson from Menomonie Middle School. I believe I saw Mr. Mark Anderson from the middle school, Mr. Anderson. And then several of our elementary principals, Mrs. Susan Mobson from Wakanda Elementary, Mrs. Peg Holden from River Heights Elementary, Mrs. Lori Smith from Oaklawn Elementary, and did I miss any members of the administrative team? Excellent. We definitely hope to get introduced and get to know more of you as well. Some of our staff members, our wonderful teachers are here tonight as well. And when people come to speak, we'll be asking that you introduce yourself. Before we get to the point of sharing and providing feedback and listening to your feedback, there's a few parts about this whole subject matter, religion in our schools, that I'd like to take the opportunity just to talk about a little bit and kind of set the stage for why we're here tonight. The main issues that we're here for tonight, first of all, we did our introductions, but we need to clarify what the issue is. So I'm going to spend just a little bit of time talking about that, and then I want to share with all of you exactly what the board's decision was. So we've been working on this really since January, and this has been a process. It's been a learning process for a lot of us, and I think making sure that everyone understands what the board's decision is a critical piece to this. I'd also like to discuss the district's plan for moving forward, and then providing the opportunity for all of you to share your thoughts and also to ask questions or provide suggestions for us moving forward.
Just look down the street, Joe.
Oh, for Pete's sake. What happened there? Has it been the whole time? Oh, is that embarrassing? It was just I was doing a good job presenting, not looking back at the screen. Okay. Wonderful. Well, I'll keep moving. And the purpose of the slides is not necessarily to have you read, but just to kind of help direct what we're doing here. It is coming up, it looks like, huh?
Yeah.
Wonder why they shut down. Maybe they were over capacity.
It's time. There you go, Joe.
Okay, so again, these were the items that I just mentioned. The purpose for tonight, clarifying the issue, sharing the board's decision, discussing the action plan moving forward, and then providing the opportunity for feedback. Okay, so clarifying the issue. This is a very passionate issue for all sorts of people, obviously. You can see from the attendance tonight, we had a ton of people at our board meeting a few weeks ago, and we've had more community communications about this topic than any other topic that since I've been here in my 3 years, and from what I've heard, several years before that. So this is obviously a very important topic, but really what this comes down to is there was a speaker at our middle school. There was an 8th grade English language arts class, and they were studying the book I Am Malala, a award-winning book, a terrific book that a ton of different schools use in their curriculum. Well, in order to set the stage for the book and have the students have a better understanding of the book and the main character in the book, our teachers brought in a speaker from the Islamic Resource Group in the Twin Cities to help our students understand what Malala, what her life was, and what her culture was, and what her religion was. That activity of bringing a speaker in led to some formal complaints, and we spent the large portion of the winter going through those complaints, getting legal opinion about the complaints, communicating about the complaints, identifying exactly what the concerns were. And I think it's really important to understand that the complaints were not about the book. I think that's probably the biggest misconception that I've heard at the board meetings or seen through social media, is that some people think that people who were concerned about the activity were concerned about the book. That was not the issue. Another part of this is there was never a specific concern about Islam or a particular religion. The concern was about teaching religion in school. Also, it wasn't about the teachers. It wasn't saying that the teachers did a bad job. The concern was about the curriculum and the activity with the students. There also were concerns about the balance in the curriculum. Was it too much about one religion? There are also concerns about our curriculum in general and whether or not it's accessible enough to parents. And also our procedures for the event where a parent would want their child to opt out of a particular learning activity. Those were other concerns that came through during this process. So once the process went through the various levels of administration, once there was dialogue between legal entities, the board heard the complaints in closed session because the complaints did discuss particular things with a student. They did discuss particular things with the teacher, even though that was not the problem. But there definitely were some privacy issues that needed to be protected through a closed session. After the process was over, the board ruled that the district did not break the law. The board felt that the activity and what had taken place with the activity was within the legal parameters for a public school. With that though, the board also said that we have a dual legal obligation. Not only do we have to teach and compare about religions, but we also have to make sure we're not endorsing any particular religion. So with that, the board directed the administration to first of all share the board's decision so everyone understands it. And I've tried to do that through the school crossings column, tried to do it through social media. We're doing it here tonight through the community forum. Also, the board suggested that we improve procedures for handling opt-out requests. We did have a couple students that opted out of the speaker activity. However, even though there was a communication home from the teacher to all the parents of the kids involved, the communication wasn't as clear as it could have been in terms of if a parent has a concern about this, if a parent would like an opt-out considered for a particular reason, here's how you go about making that request. At our last board meeting a week ago, 1 week from tonight, last Monday, the board got a chance to see the student handbooks for next year, 2017-2018. In our student handbooks, we are going to have the opt-out procedure clearly defined, and it is clearly defined. A misconception with that, however, is that there aren't that many activities that can be opted out of. There are some. Most of them have to do with some sort of disability or some sort of challenge, whether it be temporary or ongoing. But there are also some other activities where typically our school district or our teachers would provide an alternative type of activity if that's what the parents prefer. Well, now we have a consistent way, K through 12, where those opt-out procedures will be included in the handbook, and everyone knows what to do if that's something that they think is appropriate for the particular activity. Also, I already mentioned we've had professional development for our staff members. We had an attorney come in April and give our staff members professional development so that everyone understood what the legal ramifications were, or I should say the legal expectations having to do with teaching religion in schools. Our teachers are well trained. I think our teachers already knew what those expectations were. However, knowing that this is an issue that's not just becoming more common in Menomonie, but also around our area and around the country, We wanted to make sure that our educators had the training and the professional development necessary so that they could do their jobs in a way where they felt more comfortable and they felt more ready to handle these types of situations. The board also told the administration, directed the administration, that this summer they would like to review the school district's policy for teaching about controversial issues. We do have a policy for that, and that policy hasn't been reviewed in a while, and this is a good opportunity to do that. That policy will probably help direct what type of activities would or would not qualify for the opt-out provision. Finally, the board wanted to make sure that our curriculum is balanced. We have been reviewing our curriculum quite a bit, but we're going to take time next year to really pay a little bit more attention to the religion aspect in the curriculum. We do want to make sure that all of the major world religions are balanced throughout K-12. And that's another misconception some people have. Some people think that in any particular class there has to be perfect balance, or at least close balance. It really is more across the K-12 continuum that we need to concern ourselves with. And then certainly we want to make sure our curriculum is accessible, so parents, community members, taxpayers have the ability to see what's being taught to our kids. And that's one of our goals for next year as well. Okay, so moving forward, I kind of blended this in with the last slide a little bit. I already talked about the professional development. We felt that was a very good opportunity for our staff members. Also, some staff members were able to ask questions and get their questions answered. The communication, we really tried to do a good job with that. Multiple types types of media, social media, etc. I already mentioned about the opt-out procedures, and then also about teaching controversial issues. Finally, the review of school district curriculum. I already mentioned that in the previous slide as well. So we had the board decision and the board directive, and then we have the action plan. They're kind of one and the same. So, with that being said, this forum really is supposed to be about you. And I already feel like I spent as much time as I wanted to making sure that everyone understood the issue. And I want everyone to know that we think that diversity is a very, very important part of our school and our society. And we do have diversity goals as part of our vision. We've already talked about our goals for next year, including more activities having to do with diversity. And certainly, if anybody would like to mention or talk about diversity tonight, it's always welcome. But I want to just reiterate what I wrote in the invitation to this meeting. Really the issue at hand, the complaints that were at hand, really are specific to religion in schools. So, with that being said, do we have the list somewhere? Because we have such a full room, I really think it is important that whoever would like to speak, if you could come on down to the front. And we are going to ask that you introduce yourself, just like I introduced the administrative team and the school board members. We would like to know who is providing us with the feedback. Also, I took some notes off of the school board's regular procedures for community communications. We just want to make sure that everyone understands that this is a public meeting. There is media here. We don't want someone to be surprised if all of a sudden you show up on TV or you are quoted in the newspaper. And also, please understand there are some legal considerations that you might want to consider, especially if you plan to mention particular people. With that being said, Mrs. Kathy McNally, would you please come introduce yourself? Next up will be Mr. Jason Collins.
Well, you already introduced me, so I'm Kathy McNally. The many concerned parents that have come forward have never had any issues concerning any race, any culture. They encourage diversity. There is a significant misconception of these parents. These misconceptions are completely false, inaccurate, unkind, and wrong. These parents are concerned how religion is taught in our schools and how much religion is taught in our public school. And that's it. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. McNally. Jason Collins and then Tasha Larson, please.
Hello, I'm Jason Collins. I am a community member, a parent, and an 8th grade language arts teacher. Thank you all for coming. Quick background, I just want to give you facts. I'm a Christian. I grew up as a pastor's kid. My dad is a pastor in the Adult Covenant Church. So was my team partner, Tim Dolan. I am a member of First United Church of Christ, UCC. And we chose to have an Islamic Resource Group speaker come to our class. And this is an excerpt from their literature about their group. Islamic Resource Group believes in the importance of educating our students to be ready to live and work in a diverse and globally connected world. In all our presentations, we follow the First Amendment Center guidelines to present Islam in an academic, informative, objective, and neutral manner. Islamic Resource Group speakers go through a rigorous training process to get certified. We spent 2 days on Islam. We had a guest speaker come in for 1 day, and the second day we had students read George W. Bush's speech on September 20th, 2001, after the 9/11 attacks, and compare the two. We have spent 4 days reading the Bible in class. Why do we have all this literature in the classroom? Because we have to build context and background to what the students are reading. For example, we teach Flowers for Algernon. The main character, Charlie's pivotal point is when he realizes he is ashamed and he is naked. Students don't get that understanding unless they understand Genesis 2 and 3. So we have to read Genesis 2 and 3. That's just one example. Another fact, we sent a letter home to parents. In that letter, we said we invite parents to attend, and we invite them to contact us with any questions. Joe Zadowski, Brian Seguin, Mark Anderson, and Steve Severson all attended the speaker and all gave us a positive on that speaker. At least 5 parents attended, plus community members attended as well. This is the second year we've had that speaker. It was a different speaker, but it's the exact same group, the exact same slides, the exact same presentation. Finally, the Common Core standards require, and this is just 3, ELA Writing Literacy 8.9 and ELA Literacy Reading Literature 8.9 both state students analyze how a modern work of fiction draws on themes from religious texts. And ELA Literacy Reading Information Text 8.3, students analyze how a text makes connections among and distinctions between individuals, ideas, or events. I'm a teacher of this school district, and I firmly believe I am dedicated to preparing all students to become lifelong learners, caring individuals, and responsible citizens. Thank you.
That was very well deserved, Mr. Collins. Okay, Tasha Larson and then Nell Johnson, please.
A while ago, I was reading a blog by an award-winning educator in South Carolina. He was teaching a history class, and he kept being asked why by his students. Like, why did people think it was okay to push Native Americans off of their land and kill them? And why did people think it was okay to go to Africa and kidnap people and make them slaves? And all these questions kept coming, and finally this teacher realized that he had to address white supremacy. So my daughter, Lily, is in 3rd grade. They did a section on Indigenous people in this area before the settlers came. So I talked to her about that. And I talked to her about treaties, and I talked about families getting killed and land taken away and promises broken over and over and over again. And of course she kept asking me why. So finally I was like, well, let me tell you about white supremacy. And then just a couple weeks ago, when like all this started blowing up, I was sitting outside with my husband and I was like, you know what's gonna happen to me? Even though I totally don't want it to, I'm gonna end up in a room full of white people talking about white supremacy. I'm scared right now. I'm really, really nervous. I typed everything out that I was gonna say, and I generally have a rule to not do that because I wanna like speak from the heart or whatever. But I'm really nervous right now, so. I talk to my kids on the way to school about things that I want them to be prepared for. We have conversations like, before Christopher Columbus Day, like, why was Christopher Columbus a jerk? Well, because, and then my daughters, like, I give them information and then I quiz them on the way to school, so Lily would be like, because he made people slaves. And then Ellie will be like, oh, because he stole all their gold. And I can tell by their answers, you know, like they remember what I tell them, but they don't really get it. But then one day after school, Lily got home and like she got it because they had talked about Christopher Columbus. And none of those things that we studied, like none of those things were addressed in the classroom. And so she brought him up to her teacher. And I said, well, what did your teacher say? And she said, well, she just looked at me and she was like, yes. And that was it. Because those things, like, they're not in the curriculum. They're not taught in school. We also have conversations like, what do you do when you see someone by themselves? You go play with them. What do you do if you see somebody sad? You go and talk to them. What do you do if you see somebody getting bullied? You go stand up for them. And I quiz my daughters on this. Before school, after school, on the way to school, every week. Because as a minority, like I expect that my daughters will go through that. I went through that, I expect my daughters will go through that, and they are. You know, so now like after school I have conversations with Lily. Like she gets pushed out of lines by other kids and has to go to the back. She gets told literally to her face that she can't play with other kids. So after school now the questions are like, how do you stay strong? What do you do? What do you say to yourself when that happens? And remember, if you see this happen to somebody, like you do it, because maybe somebody whose parents don't have these kinds of stupid quizzes with their kids on the way to school, maybe they'll see you do that, and then they'll stand up for you. Because that's how bullying ends. It doesn't help for for teachers or parents to talk with the kids, like it has to come from the kids. But like as a part of a marginalized community, like I felt like this has been important to teach my children ever since I decided that I was going to have children. Like they need to know and understand the history of oppressed people, because even though we have privileges now, like it wasn't always like that, and like we're connected to those people. Like my daughters are being treated as other. You know, and like when they can look in history and like see that happening to groups of people and see like what they had to go through and see that they're still surviving, they can see like the strength and the resiliency, and they can own that. And religion is a part of that. Like people are talking about whether or not it's fair how much we talk about religion. Well, just to go back to white supremacy, how far back do you want to go? Do you want to go back like over 200 years ago when Native Americans, it was illegal for them to speak their own language and to teach their own religion? Do you want to go back to when slavery started here and we kidnapped like thousands of people from Africa and stole their religion and their culture? Because all of that was excused by Christianity. So Christianity has been taught, Christianity has been taught this entire time. And it's all these other religions of all these people that I would rather have my children look up to them rather than the conquerors. No offense, sorry. You know? But that's what gives them empathy, and that's what shows them that they can change the world. I talked to a couple people who don't have the same kind of ideas as I do, and one of the questions that I asked both of them was, but didn't this start really good conversations in your home? Because really, your children are lucky that they have something that they can stand for. Whether or not like the rest of the school or the rest of the community, like if you have something to stand for and you stand for that, that's amazing, and that's a blessing and a privilege. And I hope that as my children grow, as my daughters grow, they will find something and they will stand for it. Because that will give them depth and strength. One of my greatest fears as a mother is that I won't be strong enough to watch my kids struggle through what they need to go through to be the kind of women that they need to be in this world. But we don't have to be afraid. Somebody asked me what my definition of diversity is, and I realized that I don't really have one. It changes constantly. Like the more people I meet and the more perspectives I hear, like the more educated I am, like my definition of diversity broadens to include more and more and more. And diversity is hard work. Like a lot of people say that they embrace diversity, but I'm not sure if they know what diversity is. It's not easy. And it's not something where everybody agrees. A part of diversity is that we all disagree on a lot of things. I expect my daughters to be challenged. I want them to go through difficult things, no matter what kind of subjects they get taught in school or don't get taught in school. Like, I will teach my daughters the truth that I believe in. I will continue to share the history of the people that we are connected to through our fight with white supremacy and racism and fear. And the longer that narrative is controlled by people in power, the stronger my children will be. So, thank you.
Well, thank you, Tasha. As you can see, we are not trying to impose the 3-minute timeline that is posted up on the slides. I'm going to stay here as long as anybody wants to stay here. At the same time, please understand that we understand this is a busy time for everyone. There's bathrooms right out the door. There also are, there's an exit towards the back where Mr. Munoz is back there. So whether you would like to leave or whether you would like to use the restroom and come back in, we just want people to feel comfortable. At the same time, we're not imposing the 3-minute timeline, but please understand we have about, 35 people or so that want to speak. So if we do go 10 minutes each, it's going to be late. So, okay, we have Nell Johnson and the next Charlie Huff. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nell Johnson, and I'm a parent of 2 children who attend the school district in Menomonie, a 3rd grader and a 7th grader. I attended the April 24th meeting, and in that meeting, I talked a lot about how I felt about the importance of including diversity in our curriculum. But for the sake of tonight, I'm going to underscore my concern for how the district's management of parental complaints regarding teaching about religion in school may threaten the quality of our curriculum our children receive, and the academic freedom our educators need to implement relevant, meaningful, and engaging lessons that best meet state standards in the development of independent critical thinkers. Frankly, I'm a bit confused as to why such time and latitude has been afforded to those who filed a complaint about the 8th grade language arts curriculum, which included a Muslim guest speaker, despite legal counsel, which indicated that the teacher, the curriculum, and the guest speaker were all within legal standards pertaining to teaching about religion in schools. I'm perplexed as to why parents who had filed a complaint were allotted a closed session with the board on an issue for which there was a relatively concise legal criterion which could have been relayed and explained. I'm very concerned that the challenges this teacher and building principal have had to withstand, despite no wrongdoing that I have been made aware of, will be a deterrent to other teachers' attempts at providing students with guest speakers who can enrich a unit of study. I worry about ramifications when an action plan born out of complaints that appear to have no legal footing denotes the need for the board to review district policy for teaching, quote, controversial issues. This seems that the district is then erroneously labeling teaching about religion, or more specifically teaching about Islam in this case, as a controversial issue. Thus, if teachers feel that teaching about religion, even when appropriate and relevant, may be perceived as controversial, and hence may likely result in parental complaints which are permitted to grow and fester, teachers may choose to avoid such topics in order to avoid challenging controversy at the detriment to our students. Moreover, when the district schedules a public forum, the forum we're at tonight about an issue for which the legal standing has already been communicated to district families as well as the community, and that legal standing denotes nothing wrong with how the teacher or the curriculum being debated was presented, then it could be interpreted that the district ostensibly still takes issue with the teacher, the subject matter, or the guest speaker, even though there's no prudent justification for doing so. If legally there's no issue here, and the district has said they support a curriculum rich in diversity and multiculturalism, and the stakeholders of the Menomonie School District of Menomonie have been informed about the legal validation of this issue, then what is the purpose of this public forum? I'm troubled that some may view the time, energy, and attention afforded this complaint, despite lack of legal or school policy standing, to be a green light for filing baseless complaints with the expectation that they will be granted the same level of attention and responsiveness. Additionally, I'm concerned that teachers, after witnessing the opposition and challenges demonstrated over this issue, will be dissuaded from incorporating anything that even just a small percentage of parents take issue with into their curriculum. This will be a great loss for our students, who may likely not encounter enriched experiences in the classroom if teachers are made to fear any curriculum which even just a few parents can oppose, and then those few parents are granted by the board a platform on which they can recite falsifications to justify that opposition. I'm not sure if parents and community members are aware that this very same 8th grade language arts teacher had a Muslim guest speaker in his classroom last year as well, with the district leader outside of the school present, and there were absolutely no issues. Of course, now we know because Jay has told us that. I have great trepidations about issues of religion, race, etc. being overly politicized by parents, and then the district and the board allowing those politicized views to wrongly affect curriculum. Furthermore, as part of the district action plan, which was proposed as a response to this debate, the board has made public its intent to alter guidelines for parents requesting alternative lessons. Parents' requests for alternative lessons are to be considered at the discretion of the school board. In my opinion, this again may serve to deter teachers from providing any sort of lesson which could be considered controversial. Because teachers are required to provide alternative lessons for students whose parents wish to opt their child out of a component of the teacher's curriculum, along with additional other obligations, it may seem daunting for teachers to willingly add more responsibilities to their already overflowing platters by voluntarily choosing to incorporate lessons which even just a few parents may take issue with. It seems that the district's very willing to put the onus on teachers for issues which may not even have any justification. Which begs the question of what parameters will the district and the board use in defining controversial issues? Let's face it, there are a lot of issues that some people seem to find controversial. For example, climate change. Will greenhouse gases and the effects of fossil fuels on the planet be considered controversial topics by the board? Did you know that a significant percentage of people believe that the Holocaust never happened? They believe the atrocities committed against Jews and others, as well as the number of people who were murdered, are artificially inflated. Could the Holocaust then be considered a controversial issue by our school board? If the district administrator and the school board have allotted such time and consideration to complaints in regards to teaching about Islam in our schools, does the district plan to allocate the same type of attention to all concerns made by parents about curriculum? And if not, what will the protocol be for which topic of debate gets a face-to-face meeting with the superintendent, or which issues get a public forum, or which concerns are allowed to be revisited time and time again? My point here is that whether intentionally or inadvertently, the closed session, the meetings, the action plan, the public forum, the review of district policy regarding controversial issues, and the alternative lesson guidelines all have the potential to wrongly censor the curriculum our expert teachers might otherwise develop and implement. Within the last month, I've already learned of 2 situations in which classroom teachers had prearranged guest speakers, and only after the debate, which prompted this public forum, the teachers were asked questions as to whether there could be anything of controversy presented by the guest speakers. Is micromanaging every teacher's curriculum really the best use of our district's time and resources? Make no mistake about it, Menomonie is not the only district dealing with issues that could be characterized as Islamophobia. In fact, the number of schools facing this issue has increased sharply in the last 12 to 18 months. And as uncomfortable as it is to name it and talk about, it could very well be perceived that this is a prejudice that's present here. There are no complaints about any other religions being discussed or expressed in our curriculum to my knowledge. Jay just gave us many examples where Christianity was incorporated into the curriculum. I don't believe there were any complaints about this, just complaints about Islam. The question is, on which side of the debate are our board members and district leaders going to firmly stand? We could be the type of district that sees this here as an opportunity to inform, to cultivate positive understanding, to develop a sense of comparison, to actually enhance the diversity in the curriculum we offer, including broadening perspectives of multiple religions. Some districts have chosen this route. Some have chosen to use the debate as a mechanism for improvement. Or we could fail. We could fall on the side of propagating irrationalism and misinformation. This is a seminal moment, I feel, for the school district of the Menomonie area. For the sake of our children, I hope the board and our district leaders make the right choice. A very smart person recently shared with me the notion that stories matter. So I'd like to close this evening with a true story. You cry, sorry. Sorry. Just over a week ago, a very good friend of mine, who happens to be an immigrant, shared with me through tear-filled eyes that her daughter, a first-generation American, had been facing challenging times in school lately. Friends of her daughter, had been making fun of her foreign-sounding last name in school. She'd been made to move to a different lunch table. She'd been made to feel less than, simply because she didn't look like everyone else. Sorry. She asked her mother if their family could move out of state, where she could attend school with more children who shared her nationality. This story obviously made me cry. It's making me cry tonight. I think it should make us all cry. Underscoring differences, whether it be issues of race or religion, cognitive and physical abilities, or socioeconomic status, and then implying that those differences are controversial, only deepens the sentiment that the differences among us are perceived as something bad. Parents, school staff, board members, what are we teaching our children? What are our actions and our words really saying? Because our children are watching, and our children are listening. Thanks.
Next up is Charlie Huff and then Jeff Lund.
Good evening, I'm Charlie Huff, and as of a week or two ago, I became the board's favorite citizen of Menomonie. Look, let's call a spade a spade. I remember September 11th, okay? I'll never forget seeing the people fall out of the building, and I'll admit, my first knee-jerk reaction was rage. Why are they doing this? What's going on? But then I remembered something that happened to me years before when I lived in London, England. And the IRA decided to let off a bomb in England's Docklands, and I was across the street. It blew the windows of my girlfriend's apartment. I compare the two situations, and I offer these stories to you because I didn't go back to Chicago, where I'm originally from, and look at freckled-faced people differently. I didn't think that Austin Conway, the plumber up the street, was any different than I was. I knew there was a political problem. I knew there was basically a war going on. And I knew most of the Irish had nothing to do with that. It didn't even dawn on me. So why now? I want to applaud what I heard Joe say. I like everything I heard, I really do, except one thing, that this isn't about Islam. Most of us in this community don't know a lot of Muslims. We don't. And that's not our fault. That's just where we are right now. So with that, I would invite you, maybe not tonight, but to meet some of my friends who have come and from the Altoona Masjid Mosque. Wonderful people. Just as wonderful as the Irish were back in my neighborhood, and I really hope that the communities can get together, get to know each other, break bread together, become friends, because that's the way these meetings are going to become irrelevant. Until then, we'll see you at the next forum, right? But otherwise, I do applaud what I heard tonight. I think everyone's heart's in the right place here, and I do understand both sides, but let's reach out to each other and get it work. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. Next up is Jeff Lund. On deck, Shauna Lund.
Hi, my name is Jeff Lund, community member. My two sons are in the district, 8th grader and 5th grader. My son was in class going through this with speaking on the I Am Malali and listened to the speaker. Came away very impressed and talked about it. And he's one that doesn't talk a lot about things that happen at school. And asked him, what would you do in school today? And he's like, told us about what happened. And just kind of was, in his own way, giving his expert about what happened to this girl and just kind of what her religion was, and just a little bit, some of those tenets with that. And my strong belief is the main goal of the school district is to educate our children to be productive citizens. They have to prepare them to get out into this world, and this world's getting to be chaotic, confusing, very diverse place, and they need to be prepared to be in that. And having opportunities like this is vitally important with that. So introducing them to different cultures, different religions, different people that are different from them. So they are more prepared to be out in that world and knowing we're all people with that. So I just want to take time to applaud the staff, the administration of the middle school for providing this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff. Shauna Lund. Next up, Glenda Jones.
You'll never guess I'm related to him. Shauna Lund, 1715 2nd Avenue Southeast in Menomonie. Like my husband said, we do have a son that went through the curriculum and we saw some really amazing things. And I don't think Jake was at the last board meeting where I spoke, but I want to thank you for introducing that curriculum because we saw some things out of him, some realizations that we hadn't seen before, and really seeing him start emerging as a critical thinker. And that was kind of a very proud moment that I might tear up about. I don't have anything prepared, but like Charlie said, I have a hard time thinking that this isn't about the Muslim faith and Islam, because we did have this presentation last year and there were no problems, and we've had Jewish presentations and there have been no problems. And we have a club called the Fellowship of Christian Athletes in the middle school, and there's no issue with that. And there's no issue with our 4K program being at St. Joe's. And I know that's not being looked at as being fair and balanced because I was at the board meeting last Monday where they discussed keeping that program there, where they do have indoctrination religion still as part of the curriculum on that program. So to say this isn't isn't a Muslim thing, I think is short-sighted. But here's the reality. The reality is we live in a country whose second most popular religion is the Muslim religion. I think, Juliana, you said like a quarter of the population in the United States is now Muslim. Should it get the same recognition as the Hindu religion? No, because a quarter of Americans are not Hindu. They are Muslim. Why this talk at this point? And here's the thing that gets me. It wasn't a Christian gentleman that was found beaten on our roadside last October. And it wasn't a Hindu memorial service that I took my sons to and answered questions about last November. It was a Muslim. Curriculum to me is always flowing and always changing with current events and what is going on in the needs of our community. And this is what our community needed this year. This is what our children needed this year to understand the things that are happening in their world. And that makes it relevant. So my question is, why are we still here talking about this? You issued your response quite nicely. I read the school crossing. It was very well stated, very clear. I think the First Amendment in and of itself is written out very clear. The Supreme Court has ruled. So there's got to be something about this talk that generated all of this. And I don't buy that. The other thing is the amount of time that was spent. And I will out myself. I have personally filed a complaint with the board. Nobody invited me to a private session, closed session, so I could talk about my complaint. How did that happen? Where did the procedures go during this? Like, we're just sort of moving things along as we go and making stuff up, and I'm not okay with that. What's good for the goose is good for the gander, and if you're gonna have a procedure, then you need to stick to it and follow the procedure and not make exceptions for certain people in the community. Thank you.
I'm not planning to respond to everyone's comments, but since Shauna asked me a couple direct questions, I will respond. First of all, I'd like to tell everyone that we do have a formal complaint process, and that anybody who follows the process, and there are multiple steps because we do try to handle concerns at the lowest level possible. We try to get things done as efficiently as possible, which often starts right in the classroom or right at the building. However, if there is a situation where the process goes up to my level, there is a communication with me face-to-face if need be, or some other communication. So if you do have a complaint that you don't think was processed appropriately, please, by all means, come see me. This is not the only issue that we have had public complaints. School Board Policy 870 affords that opportunity to anybody. I do think it's a little bit, I think we should be careful to classify this as a status type of thing. I've had several different issues that I've dealt with in my 3 years, and status has nothing to do with them. Also, in terms of the comments related to this being an Islam issue, in my presentation, I was simply clarifying that the specific complaints had nothing to do with Islam. The complaints had everything to do with religion in public school. The example about St. Joe's and the 4K situation, that's a totally separate situation of an arrangement with our 4-year-old kindergarten program that really is not applicable to what we're talking about with our curriculum. But those are all, I appreciate you bringing those up, and that's exactly why we're here tonight. We've seen this through social media now for quite some time. There's so many misconceptions and so much concern. That's why we want to have this, so that we can express those things and ask these questions, so we can try to work with each other. And I think Charlie says about bringing everyone to the table. That's why we're here tonight, and that's what we're trying to do. So I do appreciate you sharing those concerns, and when we're done here, please follow up if it's something you'd like to do. So we have Glenda Jones, and next Bill DeHuff.
Thank you for this opportunity, and I do appreciate having this forum, and I'm glad that we have this opportunity to talk to each other. My name is Glenda Jones, and I've been a community member here now for 10 years, but I've been a public school teacher since 1989. Maybe I don't look old enough to be a school teacher that long. that's another issue. I've been at Stout now for 10 years, and I moved here as a single white woman. And I became friends and co-workers with people who were other than me, who were diverse, had different religions, different backgrounds, different nationalities. And that is what I loved about teaching in the university, is being able to have friends who are so different than me that I can continue to learn throughout my life, because I grew up as a Christian in a very conservative community. And this is the part that breaks my heart. Most of the friends that I had made and colleagues that I had made that were not white have left UW Stout. Either their children didn't fit in, they were bullied, they were victims of racism, they couldn't find a strong community, or one of my good friends was Muslim from Jordan. She left last year to go to UW Whitewater, again because the community wasn't welcoming. She didn't want her children to just grow up in it. We praise Menomonie. We say, this is so wonderful. What about the people that leave? What about the people that are pushed out? They're not sitting here because they left. Since I came here, I adopted 2 African American children, one of which is severely disabled. Don't think there's a day that I don't wonder if I need to move to the Twin Cities so that my kids won't be victims of racism. I go down the street and I see a lone black person and I think, there's my son waiting to be beat up or killed by somebody. And then I know that are racist people living here. Please don't let that happen. I don't care if this conversation is about religion or racism or ethnicity or anything else. I'm not trying to change the narrative. I'm a person that walks around every day. I brought them here. I know that. But I brought them here hoping that other people would love them like I do. And I am not trying to change the narrative and say that religion in school is not important. I'm trying to say that I love them and I feel like vomiting half the time because it's so conservative here. Stout wanted me, and I want you to know that over 200 people applied for the position that I got. And they said, we want you to come here. You with your diverse ideas, you the one that we want. You can teach these things to these students. Please, let's be the community that people think they're moving into, not the one that sends people out. Because there's a lot of people missing here that I've known in 10 years.
Next up is Ilda Huff, and then on deck is Frank Burdick.
Hello, my name is Bill B. Hoff, and thank you for the chance to speak. A lot of what I was going to say has already been said, so I won't trouble you with re-saying it. I think there are 2 points that I would like to make. First of all, it seems to me in hearing this that there's I think a consensus that people don't want to have religion taught in the sense of proselytizing, but people want our students to know about other religions for that. And that's a very different animal. I think it's important to recognize that, I don't know about the United States, but worldwide there are something like 1.7 billion Muslims. Basically, 1/4 of the world's population is Muslim. And so if our kids are to go out into the world they've got to know something about that. It makes no sense to avoid that. So I think that's a primary thing that we need to be concerned with. The second is that it seems as if part of the distress was perhaps having a speaker in. That's what I gathered from this. But I would say to you that if you were studying biology, ecology, you would bring in somebody from the DNR, somebody that has training in that, someone who's a professional. If you were trying to bring in, study something of anatomy, it would make perfect sense to bring in a doctor or someone who works with that. And so why in heaven's name would it seem strange to bring someone who is a representative of Islamic faith, who has been trained in that, and so on, to talk to the students to give them context for what they're going to be studying in this book? It makes no sense to me to make that kind of distinction. So anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill, and that was really well said. And I think Bill kind of reiterated what some of the points I was trying to make earlier. The concern was about whether or not the speaker was, I can't pronounce what you just said, thank you. That was the crux of the matter. It wasn't so much that that it was a speaker, a non-faculty member. It was whether or not the presentation itself went too far in endorsing the religion. And again, the board ruled that definitely was not the case. Okay, let's see here. Frank Burdick. Frank, are you going to come speak? And next, I apologize for the pronunciation. Hariam Chida? Was that close at all?
Miriam.
Oh, Miriam. I'm sorry, Miriam. I thought it was English. Oh, there's Miriam. Frank, you're up.
I didn't prepare a speech for this, so I'll try to be as brief as I can. My name is Frank Burdick. My wife and I have lived in Woodland Terrace for 42 years. I was 80 years old last October. I was industrial arts teacher for 12 years of my career, and for 28 years I was a lobbyist and government relations consultant for the teachers union. And I've been retired for almost 20 years now. We had 3 daughters who graduated from Menomonie High School, and we have 7 grandchildren. Most of them have graduated from college, and 3 great-grandchildren. I was on the board for 3 years, found it to be a very nice and informative experience. But my view about this issue is I applaud the inviting of the person to the class, and the more, I believe, the more we can provide diversity for our children, the better. And if they ever do, or if you have a guest that begins to proselytize, I think he should be politely told that wasn't the purpose. But I would be in favor of teaching about all religions and the basic tenets of those religions, the missions of those religions. And the more our people learn about it, I think, the better. And people, I think, would be better off. I just wanted to say that I was born and raised in Beloit, and I love this state. I was able in Beloit to walk to school with black kids, to the Rockford Junior High School. Our school was about 30% black. Some of my best friends are black. My very best friend is an African American that I worked with in we act. But we do have some serious problems about racism, especially in Wisconsin. Wisconsin incarcerates more African Americans than any state in the country. And Milwaukee is the most segregated city of any city in Wisconsin. So I think we do have a problem, not just in Wisconsin, but nationwide, to address this question of white supremacy and the racism that still exists. I applaud the board for the way they handled this issue. I think they did a fair job, and I love being a part of this community, and I hope we can work together to address this problem.
Thank you, Frank. If we could just do a quick show, are there any empty seats out there in case anybody's getting tired? So we have a few in the back, a few in the corner, one right here. So if anybody would like to sit down, there's still some availability. Again, restrooms out either exit. Okay, next we have Miriam Chida, and on deck, Marion Lang.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Marion Chida, and I'm a faculty at Stout. I want to let my colleague at Stout know that I'm not going anywhere. I literally fell in love with this community. I moved here 3 years ago. I'm originally from North Africa, of course, of the Islamic religion. But I'm not here to talk about who I am. I'm here to talk about what makes me love this country. I was 12 years old. I was visiting my grandparents in Tunisia, and then I was shopping with my mom, and then I heard this, woman talk in a very regional language to this, merchant. And then within 5 minutes or so, my uncle's wife, who happens to be American, came by, and then this woman started talking to her in English. So I turned to my mom and I go, wow, her English is perfect. And she was laughing. She said, no, she's American. How is that possible? And so I grew up very, very curious about what the American culture was like, who the Americans were. The Peace Corps, were very common in Tunisia. Very open, very curious, very embracing to learning about different things and different people. And so that's how I fell in love with this country. So that was the first, kind of parentheses. I am very, very impressed and so proud to be part of this community and the school, to hear such, passion in creating and giving context to the students. From university's perspective, when you teach students, those that rise to the top are students who are able to really navigate in a multicultural, diverse environment. And so that's how we can prepare global citizens. It's just from a teaching perspective. From parents, if you really care about your children, you want them to succeed when they leave the nest, one such way to do that is by helping them navigate differences. We don't want them to embrace or change their ideas, but at least they are aware. And so being aware and learning how to navigate the system is also a very important skill in today's world. And so as a teacher, our job is not to dictate what we think is right or what our political views or religious views, but it's about exposing them to differences. And that's what helped me when I grew up. I didn't just learn about Islam, I learned about Christianity, I learned about Judaism, and that makes a great conversation because when I meet colleagues from different backgrounds, they also have perceptions about my religion, and I'm there to mess it all up. That's not it. Let's do it again. And so, thank you all for being here again. This is again confirms my feeling about this community. People care, naturally and sincerely care, and want to learn more. And I think by creating this type of environment where it is safe for students to come and learn about each other, I think that's how we will long term perhaps reach peace around the world. So
Next up, Marion Lang. On deck, Arthur Neeland.
Hi, I'm Marion Lang, and I've lived here for longer than I'd like to tell you. My background has been in community building, a lot of it in theater, and particularly working with the Hmong community when I had a theater company and we told those stories. I want to thank people here for speaking the truth that they've lived. It's not the same truth that I've lived. And sometimes when you see yourself reflected in another person's eyes, you say, that can't be. No, it's not like that for me. It really hurts. So thank you very much, everybody who shared their truth of living in this community. The remarks I have to make are just pretty factual. I want to thank, as I said, everyone who's spoken so emphatically for the type of education that the kids in middle school are receiving. With others, I believe that learning about a religion is not the same as religious indoctrination. I have read the school district proposal outlining how teachers would be required to create an alternative learning activity and alternative learning setting for a student when parents consider the curriculum to be controversial. I question this proposal because I think it places an undue burden on the teaching staff. And I question its fairness to the students, both those who are in the classroom and those who are out of the classroom. Because no teaching situation, no learning situation can be separate but equal. When teachers include learning about a controversial issue in the curriculum, this is the way that our children develop critical thinking. By listening to different points of view, by learning about subjects such as a particular religion that may be different than their own, or they may not have a religion, or whatever the family ethics are. Our children grow and thrive when they can develop the ability to listen openly to new information, to ask questions, and to compare new information to what they may already know. Parents can encourage their children, certainly when at home, to talk about what they're learning and to reinforce family values, ethics, and religious beliefs. But I think as a community, we need to encourage civil discussion, to teach our kids how to listen to something that they don't agree with, how to listen with care and attention, and how to talk about it in respectful ways. The classroom has long been a center for shared, respectful civil discourse, for introducing students to new information and then giving students the opportunity to decide for themselves how to use this information. It's not a good policy to encourage separate lessons in separate classrooms.
Thank you, Marion. I think this is another opportunity here for us to try to clarify the practices and the purpose of what the opt-out procedure includes. Opt-outs have been allowed in our district for years, and like I mentioned at the onset, oftentimes those opt-outs may be related to a particular disability or other type of situation where the learning activity just really isn't appropriate for that particular situation. In this circumstance, our teachers actually voluntarily allowed 2 opt-outs for 2 particular reasons. So the opt-out procedure is not something that's new. Providing an alternative activity is not something that isn't already being done in some cases. The purpose between the opt-out procedure, again, was to provide more consistency for that when it is allowed by the teacher, by the school district, that there is a process that's detailed. So I definitely appreciate the concerns. We are also very concerned about opt-outs and how that they can impact the educational experience. However, there are definitely things that have to have opt-outs, some by law, some by best practice. Okay, Arthur Neeland, and then next will be Tamara Brantmeyer.
Hello, my name is Arthur Newland. I'm a teacher at UW Stout. I teach general biology. And so I get many students who have gone through the American education system. It's interesting. I see what the high school, middle school teachers have to deal with when they, in their students when they come to me. There are so many rules that these teachers have to live by when they teach their lessons. And so I would like to encourage the board as you move forward and consider this issue to not make more rules for your teachers to have to live by. One of the things that I deal with all the time is the effect that standardized testing has on your students. And whenever they write an essay, they insist on writing the question at the beginning of the essay instead of just getting into the information that I want them to use. And so they're wasting their time in doing this, and it's because of the standardized testing that the teachers have to get their students through. And that's not something that anybody can control, but you can control this little bit of what's going to happen after this, where you can either choose to make more rules for your teachers to follow, or you can trust that the administrators, the principals, the teachers know what they're doing, because they are highly trained people, listening to all these state statutes. I feel very blessed that I'm in a university where I just have to keep track of a couple things. Thank you.
I think we could have a whole forum on standardized testing. And I don't know that it would go as well as this. Okay, next is Tamara Brandmeier on deck, Michael Pashern.
She was making some drawings. All right. Okay. I totally, I'm scrapping what I was going to say because a lot of it's been said before, but I thought I'd get to the root of what I wanted to say and also respond to a couple things. Oh, my name's Tamara Brandmeier. My mom went to Miller Hill one-room school in Knapp and went to Menomonie High School, and I grew up in River Falls. And now I'm where my mom's roots are. So a few thoughts just from what I've heard. So if this truly is a religion in schools issue, then Christmas needs to be rethought. I know we call it a holiday these days, but as a Jew in this school district, I would imagine things would get a little funky. Hanukkah is not a major holiday really at all for Jews, but it's close to Christmas, so there you go. So I think if it truly is a religion in school things, I think we need to be thoughtful about that. I also just wrote down a sentence: religion is a part of human history, for good and for bad. It's part of it, so it needs to be roped into teaching history and teaching literature. As Jay pointed out with some of what he teaches from both the Bible and other sources. I'm just going to read some pieces. Teaching about and comparing religions, to me, is not controversial. However, when I was at a school board meeting a few weeks ago, and hopefully I'm reflecting what I heard from a concerned parent, this parent indicated that in their complaints that they're rooted in the story that she told was that her daughter came home after the speaker and basically pointed out that Christianity and Islam have a lot more in common than she realized. And I think it kind of freaked the parent out. And I think about my sister, who I lovingly refer to as an uber Christian. She's very devout, borderline extremist Christian, and I love her. But we don't talk about much in that realm. And I've been trying to over the last 6 months since a certain election happened. And I just want to say I empathize with the speaker I heard at the school board meeting, because their perception or their fear or they're feeling challenged and threatened, and that's real to them. That's real. that's real. So I want to honor that. At the same time, speak to all of the things in our history that, people were drawn and quartered out of fear in the name of religion. So fear is also worrisome to me. And I made another note about the speaker. I think whether they went too in depth or not, that I think anytime we have someone be willing to come and put themselves in front of a mostly white audience or group of students to share about their religion and talk about their culture, I think the conversation's going to go different and it's going to go deeper. And so that might feel or be perceived as too much for some if you're feeling fearful or threatened. And it might be really enlightening and life-changing for others. So those are my thoughts.
Next up is Michael Pashern, and on deck is Judy Menomonie. Did I get that correct? Judy? No? How about her? Yes? You're on deck.
My name is Michael Pashern. I'm a 1980 graduate of Menomonie High School. And I grew up here. My parents were both on faculty at the university. And in that, I was privileged because my parents had many foreign students that came to the home. And that was my introduction to diversity. I also served in the military, and when I served in the military, I had guaranteed overseas placement because I grew up looking at National Geographic and everything intrigued me. And I just wanted to go explore the world. I've lived abroad about half of my adult life. I have been in the situation where I walk down a street at night, perhaps, and perhaps the young women in the area see a tall white guy and they walk across the street to avoid me. This is the idea of objectification. When we look at others not as people, but as objects. And in general, we do that with fear, apprehension, hesitancy. One other point I'd like to make is called point of perspective. Every single person in this room has a different point of perspective. From your cultural, your ethnic, your religious, your family backgrounds, that you look at the world in the manner that you were raised with. One of my goals in life was to set out and try to understand as much of that diversity as I possibly could. And when I was in some countries, and somebody, in some cases, literally a little old lady walked up and put her hand on my face because the men in that area didn't have much facial hair, I reached right back and put my hand on her face, and she jumped and looked at me like I'd attacked her. And I said, "You touched me, I'll touch you." I got into this and was at one of the school board meetings with very little knowledge about this specific situation. But the lack or the inability to step back sometimes when you are anxious or fearful because of something that you see that is different and you don't understand it. And then to try to come to understand it and embrace it. Not that you say, "This is what I now believe," but I understand what this is. Helps to deconstruct that objectification. I have friends that are Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, atheists, and my personal feeling is it makes no difference to me whatsoever, just as long as I treat them with respect and they treat me with respect. I'm very encouraged to see so many people here. It's a good, dynamic thing for a community to converse and communicate. Because it's not nearly as easy to maintain these standards of fear, and in some case hatred, when people sit down and communicate with each other. Thank you very much.
Next up is Herb Manning. On deck, Lee Nichols.
Good evening. I'm Herb Manning. I live on N4825, 430th Street. I see some smiling faces. Some probably remember me. I spent 37 years in public education, the last 17 as an assistant principal and director of vocative. In those 37 years, I have never seen a controversy over religion as I see it now. I was taught that religion is for the churches and the home. We deal with the real world as we see it. True, like a gentleman, I turned 80 at my last birthday. I've been retired since '97. When I left education. I went into a whole different ballgame. So I'm a little bit surprised to hear this, although I agree with what the teacher did to a point. I've heard talk of critical thinking skills. I was taught we don't let them learn them by accident. We teach them. And one of the critical thinking skills is compare and contrast. And as we build a curriculum, whether it's 8th grade or 12th grade, we have to take the level of the students and the knowledge that they have in their head, because you can't teach anything new until you build it on something they have. If this teacher, I don't know whether it was male or female or what have you, brought the Muslim in, then why not some public or some regular religion? So these kids who are only in 8th grade, their minds are open. Give them something to compare and contrast. And then talk about the differences. That's what I think the issue is. I don't think that the problem was the teaching of religion. I don't think that was the intent of the curriculum. I think just the choices made brought it to light. Thank you.
If the subject is teaching religion in the 8th grade, what a better place to learn about and support the new city proclamation, which values kindness, compassion, respect, and neighborliness. Thanks, Dave Williams. I borrowed that. If the subject is creative, talented, dedicated, inspirational, and altruistic teachers, it is a blessing to have them in our district. Retention of the best and brightest educators is still surely a worthwhile community goal. I wholeheartedly support open-mindedness and freedom of expression, especially in our public schools, including comparative religions. I want to stop or end with a little story. I grew up in a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant southern Midwestern community. In 1958, in April, I was a junior in high school. I had 2 teachers in high school. One was named Miss Wynn. She was a sweet lady. She was a math and algebra teacher. She was a lovely person. She loved her profession. She loved math and algebra. Now, Miss Gwynn, and this is no lie, taught 76, that's not quite as old as Frank Bertie, but 76 years. She quit teaching in 96. Now, she had the strongest legs in Iowa, but she was not a good teacher. We had another guy named Ralph Reeves. Ralph came to town, young, single, enthusiastic, motivated, dedicated, devout Catholic. And in class one day, he noted to the class that, according to his personal observation, it seemed as though some of the migrant laborers weren't being treated fairly. Mexicans. Now, it's important to remember, and this relates to the case here, there's there's a deep river between that classroom where the guest speakers come, where the teachers teach the curriculum, where they take risks, experiment, and it is hazardous. But the gap between the school door and the students' minds, and when they get home for supper, a lot can happen in the way that plays out at the supper table. And so Ralph made the observation about the neglected and the situation with the migrant laborers in the nursery. And one of the students went home and told her father that what he had said. And so the board met, and on Good Friday they fired Ralph. Took his contract, that was the end of Ralph. Well, he left my little town, the 6,000, and he was hired by the top school in Colorado, Cherry Creek High School, one of the premier schools in the nation for decades, down the road from Columbine. Ralph was the teacher of the year, his first year at Cherry Creek High School. Now, this is important because this drove me into diversity for the rest of my life. I've dedicated it. Luckily, I've been able to travel to 40 countries. Lived in Mississippi half of the last 11 years. See, but it's some of you have alluded to this, it's tough. We never really left Wisconsin, but it did hurt us when we heard in Mississippi that we were now being called Mississippi. And so we're here, we're in wholeheartedly to support the public system. What we're doing, so much of what's happened the last 3 or 4 weeks been very positive. I wish as well we need to come together and make this just another benchmark in progress of the district.
Next up is Lainey Marshall. On deck, Marie Schwartz.
Good evening, I'm Lainey Marshall. I'm a teacher of English at UW Scout. And every fall I teach, when I teach the honors composition class, my students read religious texts. So this last fall, those texts were the Bible, the Quran, and the Bhagavad Gita. Generally, my honor students are very talkative. And when we got to the religious section of the semester, all of a sudden my class was quiet. And I said, folks, what's going on? You all just need a nap? What is this? And they looked at each other, and finally one brave student spoke up and said, well, we went to public school and we're not used to talking about religion in school. We really haven't been able to discuss it. If my students in my class had been in more classes with more courageous teachers, the way my kids were, because they went through Menomonie schools, then those college students would be at another level in their ability to engage with religious differences, in their ability to understand what it means to be in a religious minority, what it means to have different values than the one that they hold, even though they don't themselves hold those values. I think that's a really important skill for our students in K-12 as well as in college. As Tamara said, our kids learn about Christianity every year because, well, when was the last time your kids had to attend school on Christmas? And do you even know when the last time it was that my kids, who are Jewish, had to attend school on our holy days? Which is not Hanukkah, it's a pretty minor liturgical holiday. So Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, these are important. Passover, the most celebrated Jewish holiday of any of them by Jews around the world. And yet, these are not part of our school calendar. So, when the board meets this summer to review the policies and curriculum and to ensure a balance of religions, I'm not sure they can achieve that unless we change religions with the calendar each year, and this is the Christian year calendar, and then the next school year we have a Jewish year calendar. And I really hope that the board will consider how to give the teachers the latitude to be able to talk to their kids about topics that are relevant, appropriate, and most importantly, timely. So that it's not like, oh, I'm a 7th grade teacher, so this is the Baha'i year, and I cannot speak about other things happening in the news because it's not about the Baha'is, for heaven's sakes. I really hope that the board will find a way to open the curriculum and make it something that the teachers can have the freedom to engage with so that they give their students what is relevant and timely. My kids graduated from this school system with a really good education, but I have to say, even as honor students, they managed to get all the way through MHS without having to take history of anything other than the US. So, I would think that maybe that would be a good place for diversification of the curriculum, if that's maybe one thing that they would like to take a look at. I started school in a 2-room brick schoolhouse in northern Idaho. 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade in one room, 4th, 5th, and 6th in the next. And I was the only Jewish kid, not only in the school, but probably in the whole district at the time. And I got beat up pretty regularly because of that, because those kids learned that my ancestors killed Jesus. It's really important that our kids learn about religious diversity so that they know a little bit more about different religions than that. When I found out about this forum tonight, I invited Miriam to come with me, and she instantly accepted. And we're here as people who have different religions, grew up in very different traditions, different countries, different continents, and who have really enjoyed talking about those differences. And I hope you'll give the students in the Menomonie School District the opportunity to have those kinds of conversations even before they graduate from high school.
Sounds like we might have some diplomas to review with that history. Mr. Seglin kind of cringed over there. I do know that we have more than U.S. history. Okay, I'm joking. We're just trying to lighten it up here. We're not going to review any diplomas, okay?
It's offered, but it's not required.
Okay. Anyway, so let's, where are we at? Marie Schwartz, and on deck, Richard Rust.
Speaking to that note about the different history religions, I was a graduate of NHS last year along with both of her daughters, and we do have to take global issues where we touch on other religions and cultures, which is, I feel like, a part of that. So, my name is Marie Schwartz. I am a GX Scholar, a 2016 MHS grad, a taxpayer, and a concerned citizen about this topic. The first time I was at a school board meeting was last year, actually, and I was speaking as a GX Scholar, where we were celebrating our knowledge on different cultures and different religions. Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines culture as customary beliefs, social forms, material traits of racial, religious, or social groups. You cannot separate culture and religion, they go together. As religion is such an integral part of so many different cultures. Learning about other cultures is instrumental in providing the students opportunities to grow in their education and expand their horizons. And especially in this ever-globalizing world, it is key that we incorporate this. My 5th grade class attended a mosque and a synagogue as part of learning about different cultures and religions. Now, I attended St. Joe's Catholic School, which is a private elementary school here in Menomonie. But I thought it was very key how that even this Catholic private elementary school realized and was aware that it was important to incorporate learning. It wasn't indoctrination, it's only education about different religions. And so with that, I currently attend Creighton University, which is a Catholic Jesuit university. I just finished my freshman year, and in my freshman dorm, there was a Muslim prayer room in the lobby. This is a Catholic university, and they are aware of other religions and how important it is to respect them and be open to learning about them. Now, in order to have a well-rounded education that does not include learning about other religions and cultures, it's impossible. Especially in this world where we're constantly talking to each other, we're interacting with other religions and people who are different than ourselves. We must give our students the tools to be able to respectfully, even if your opinion's different, or you don't agree, but you're able to respectfully acknowledge and learn about and have an open mind to other cultures, religions, and other ethnic groups, and just overall a global diversity outlook.
How cool is that? Nice job, Marie. Must be doing something right. Okay, Richard Rust, and on deck is, I'm sorry, I believe it's Molly Wrighton? Molly? Mary, I'm sorry, I couldn't read it.
I'm Richard Rust. I live in Woodland Terrace, and I did teach in the Menomonie School District from 1974 to 1983. I haven't been retired since then, but I did teach here. I'd like to commend the school board and the administration for positively reacting to parents' concerns. Although I strongly feel that religion should be left to the teaching of the parents and the community churches and not in the school. I don't know whether or not the intent was to teach religion in that class, but I don't think any of us would deny that teaching did occur. And so if the school board is going to continue to allow religion to be taught in the school, I would ask that you balance it and not balance it throughout the K through 12 curriculum, but it should be balanced within that unit and not spread out and say that 15 minutes of reading Genesis is equivalent to an entire unit or a couple of days on teaching another religion. So again, if you're going to, if you're going to allow that to occur, religion to be taught in the school, that definitely balance it with the other religions.
Mitch Ogden, and on deck, Nate Paulson. No comment from Nate, okay? So it'll be Mitch and then Tricia Thompson.
If anybody else would like to speak, but you're not on the list, if you could please sign up with Brian, we'll make sure everyone gets a chance before we end tonight.
My name is Mitch Ogden, and I'm here tonight as a father of 5 children, 7th grade, 5th grade, 3rd grade, 1st grade, and 4K at St. Joe's. I also am here as a professor and scholar of literature, and of Hmong studies in particular. And I'm here also as a devout practicing member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So I'm a Mormon, and I grew up, and I'm familiar with being a religious minority and being misunderstood. Though I fared better than my friend Lainey in school because I'm a man, I'm a white man, and I'm not a small white man. And we have to acknowledge that, as already been said, I just want to reiterate, as a scholar of literature, as a human being who loves the world, you cannot separate religion from all the things that we do, the lives that we live, the plays that we write, the love that we have, the stories that we tell, the things that we wear, the foods that we eat. They are all deeply religious, they are spiritual, they are sacred to us. If we stop talking about that, we stop being human. Now, with all respect, vocational education and many topics in our school can stay safely away from religion in most cases. But when it comes to understanding history and culture and society, it's all mixed in. It's integral. Thank goodness. Thank heavens, thank God that it is. It's what makes us human. We lose that, we become automatons to march through life without feeling a thing. That is what makes me afraid. Of being disconnected from my spiritual life and feeling afraid to talk about it, to share it. So Jay, I'm ready to come talk about the Book of Mormon. The musical. And that is part of our rich American heritage. I was not offended when that musical took to Broadway. It has made some people very famous and very wealthy. And the church, in fact, I was a little worried the church might come out swinging. We've got some big guns we keep hidden away in Salt Lake. Rather than come out and protest and picket, they bought ads in the playbill for the Book of Mormon musical, and they said simply, "You've seen the play, now read the book." Can we respond like that? Right? With my Mormon kids here in town, like, I need you, I expect you. Teach them some things about spirituality and religion that I don't know so well. Please. Please. I know that you aren't going to force it on them. You're not going to make them do something that makes them feel uncomfortable. It feels like they violate their core beliefs. I know you're trying to help them understand what makes you live, what makes you human, what makes you passionate about what you do. Please don't hide that away. Don't leave it for Sunday or Saturday or whenever it happens. Bring it your whole life. It's not just religion, it's spirituality. And it is what makes us human. Thank you for being humans of Menomonie, all of you. And I look forward to being here a long time.
Okay, we have Trisha Thompson, and then Sue, is it Ream?
Reader.
Reader? Okay, wonderful.
I don't know how I followed that. and so much of what I wanted to say has already been said, so I won't make this any longer than it needs to be. But so my name is Trisha Thompson, and the perspective I'm coming from is my husband and I adopted my brother and sister back in 2003, and they both graduated from high school here. And then we also have a 5th grader and a 1st grader. And I guess one of the things that I wanted to say is, you know, I was the child that grew up as the eldest of 9 in a family with extreme poverty. I often was homeless. We ate out of garbage cans. We begged for money and for food. We traveled way too much. And but we were exposed to all kinds of things, some of which were probably not the good things that you'd want your children to be exposed to. But truly our minds were open because we had no other, we lived in multiple different environments. And I guess I never really saw the value of that until, well, honestly, until my kids, my brother and sister went through school, and then until my kids actually went through school, and they were exposed to teachers who were willing to open their minds. and to provide them with opportunities to see other parts of the world. And I'm not by any means suggesting that you make your kids be homeless or something like that. But I do think, and I'm so grateful for those teachers who are willing to push the boundaries a little bit for the sake of understanding that there is a world outside of Menomonie. As much as I love this community, I can assure you this is not all there is. And then one other thing, I was thinking about this topic a lot, and I've kind of mentioned this, so I'm kind of apologizing, I guess, to those who have heard the story too many times. But even after working in the central city of Milwaukee doing home visits and working with such a diverse population of families, and now, my entire professional career has been doing home visits and walking into situations I didn't know what I was walking into, but accepting people for what they were, who they are, what religion they use. I didn't care. I saw those people as valuable to my life and to the community I lived in. But there's still so much I don't know. And I think that has been part of, over the last couple of months, one of the great things has been just learning about even more about what I didn't know. And I guess I just want this community and school to continue to embrace the teachers that are willing to expand all of our knowledges. And the other thing, and I wrote this down because I didn't know if I could get it through or get it out without crying, but religion is the title, but the body of the story is about which class of individuals make the decision for the rest of us. If you think it's about something else, you're kidding yourself. And to settle any doubt in your mind, I also would like to say that I am Christian, and I do believe in God. Every day I enter the homes of those who are the most forgotten about. These are the families who are consumed by grief, loss, poverty, and pain. They are not able to be here tonight, not because they don't care about their children or their education, but because they know those with influence and power will be the decision makers. And if you are honest with yourself, you would agree with these are the same families who would never have been afforded this closed session. And I've heard the explanation, and I don't, to be honest, I don't buy it. I think that there was definitely privilege granted, and I truly believe that if this was a family that was living in a trailer park and had another concern, that they would not have been afforded the same right, no matter what the topic of the discussion was. So tonight I speak for so many of those whose voice isn't represented here. Our biggest request is to please stop the discussion of the action plan. While maybe it initially was a good idea, the more I have witnessed and learned and heard, the more I am confident certain parents will use this plan as justification about why they have the right to nitpick through the curriculum of the teachers in order to remain the center of attention and advance their agenda. The district should use their time and resources to make sure all children feel represented and included. No child benefits from instruction that is watered down for the sake of protecting the feelings of the few. And so, school board and administration, you have an obvious choice to make. You can either choose to allow someone, and I'm going to just say it, to use their money to continue to dictate the district's policies and participate in bullying, or you can choose to show with actions you support all children, teachers, and principals. My children deserve educators are supported to expand their mind. They don't deserve an administration that is determined to run out of town the teachers and principals who are brave enough to challenge conventional thinking and ideas. Thank you.
Next up we have Sue, and then Bruce Trimble.
Hi, my name is Sue Miller. I live at N6802 539th Street. I've been in Menomonie for 14 years. I lived 16 years prior to that in the Twin Cities, but I grew up on a dairy farm in southwestern Wisconsin. I've not had a child go through the school system. my children went to private schools, but in Wisconsin, and so I can't really address that, but I see a lot of passion here, I hear a lot of emotion, and I hear a lot of fear, which makes me really sad. I want to applaud the school board. I think you have done an admirable job of communicating, of listening, and that is your job as you represent all of us here that live in this community. And I will pray for your deliberations this summer as you decide to go ahead with whatever policies you decide. But I think I'm going to talk to a point that really hasn't been made here tonight. First of all, I want you to know that I'm all about diversity. My son is married to a girl who grew up in Taiwan. She is Asian, if you want to talk about what people look like. But I want to tell you a little story. Living in the Twin Cities and raising my children there, I was exposed to a lot of diversity, and so are my children. But I chose not to bring up differences, but what united us, what made us the same as human beings. So in my son's preschool class, there was a boy fresh off the plane from Somalia. And we had him over to play at our house, and my son went over to play at his house. And that's just the way it was. When it came to kindergarten, his parents couldn't afford the private school that we sent our kids to, and Aruli didn't come to kindergarten. And one of the other kids in my son's kindergarten class said out loud in class, "What happened to that black boy that was here in preschool last year?" And my son said, "What's a black boy?" Because we don't talk about things like that. We don't talk about that. We talk about what unites us, not what makes us different. I understand there's diversity. I understand diversity. I know that we're different. But if we're going to focus on things that divide, it's a Latin word, diversity, division, it divides. What we need to concentrate on is what makes us the same. What brings us together as humans? What do we share? And I hear just a lot of division here. That's what I hear, just everything that separates. And it should be what brings us together in our humanity. Let's see, America is not a perfect country, but it is still a country that people are fighting to get into. There are waiting lines. There are people stealing across the borders to get in because there's still a lot of good things here. And it burdens my heart when I hear this country that people all around the world want to get into trashed. Yes, we've made mistakes. Could we have done things differently? Yes, we could have. But those are things of the past, and we can't do anything about that. We can only do something about the future. And I've heard a lot of faiths bashed here, especially Christianity tonight, and that makes me sad because I'm a Christian. There are no perfect followers of any faith because we're all sinners, but we do our best. And as a Christian, I set my sights on Jesus Christ, who lived a perfect life, and I try to be like him. And I'm sorry for other Christians who stepped away from the tenets of our faith and didn't love God with all their heart and love their neighbor as themselves. But please don't judge all Christians on the bad, just like I'm not going to judge the jihadists that ran the planes into 9/11. So don't stereotype. Look for what unites. And also I heard about bullying. I know that bullying goes on. I know there's racism. My daughter-in-law still is on the recipient end of that because she lives in America and she's Asian. But my daughter, who's white, also was bullied. So what we need to do as parents, as concerned citizens, is to try to bring us together and quit the separation. And I don't know, wasn't in with the teacher, I don't know exactly how in depth it went. You made the determination that they didn't go in depth. Children are very vulnerable though, and I want their minds to be opened, but not to the point of indoctrination. I don't think that's what you're trying to guard against, and I appreciate that. Proselytizing is a line we should not cross. And I do appreciate, I understand the burden of a teacher. I've been a teacher's aide in classrooms. I understand what they have to put up with. I understand all the rules that are put before them every day, all day. But teachers still need to be accountable. And we also have to remember that our children are not wards of the state. Our children belong to the parents. And I applaud parents who are being a Berean, that's a biblical term, but they're checking, they're being discerning, when they hear something, they want to know why. I think that's okay, because we do not want a teacher that might be a renegade to go off in a tangent and teach something that we wouldn't want our children to hear. But I do believe, or follow what Herb said about the comparative and contrast. I think that is a very good thing, and I hope that that would always happen with everything that we teach. And that's all I have to say.
Bruce Trimble, and then Kathleen Renaud.
First off, I'd like to excuse or be excused for the fact that I'm not a public speaker and I was never a teacher. I was a dentist, Bruce Trimble. I've been in town as a dentist for over 50 years now. And whenever I got to talk to somebody, they couldn't answer me, so anyway, I'd like to thank Frank and Herb for divulging the fact that what their age was, because I'm not the oldest guy here, but I'm up that close. Same year. Anyway, I came from Cedar Rapids, Iowa, about the same side as Madison, in the poorest section of town. And we didn't know we were poor. Everybody we knew was in the same boat, and we didn't care. We had diversity, lots of it. When we were little kids, we'd go play football or whatever we were playing. A lot of times we played in the side lots of the Muslim temple, what we called the Muslim temple. It wasn't anything special, just like a little frame country church, only it didn't have a steeple on it. And our friends, Mo Igram, Bob Hammett, so forth. Mo was Muhammad, obviously. And they were our friends. They were named different than we were, except they went to a different church than we did. But we also noticed that there were some differences between the Catholics and the Baptists, you know. I mean, but they lived in the same town, and they got along with each other just fine. One of my best friends, a kid named Bev Taylor, B.T., Bruce Trimble, Bev Taylor. His dad had played on the same ball team with my dad. And since a lot of the school's classes were alphabetically ordered, from the time we were in grade school, we sat next to each other. And got to dental school, and there's Bev sitting next to me again. So we were together for a lot of years, and we still communicate a lot. Good friend. He's black. And just a good guy. I didn't prepare a speech here at all. I scribbled some notes down, and I hope I can read some of them. I'm very proud and happy to have been born in an area with Judeo-Christian values. And the courts and all of our customs are geared on that. Yes, I had Muslim good friends. And in fact, the Muslim girl lived with us for 2.5 years while she was here at Stout. And as such, she became one of our family, and she still is. In fact, I had to learn, like a script in a play, what to do representing her husband's family when they got married. He was Catholic, and he really didn't have a family. So they had all kinds of customs that you had to do in the Muslim marriage. I see you nodding. It takes about a week. First they have to bathe and all kinds of different things.
She was very nice to him. It takes much longer.
Okay. Well, anyway, it's kind of Act 2, Scene 1. Now you take this cake over and you give it to Auntie so-and-so. But it was very interesting. And nothing negative at all about it. And she's still like one of my own family. But I think that we're worried about things that aren't that big a deal. Every religion that I know of, if you boil it down, we all think about the same. If you actually think about it instead of what's been handed to you, you come up with the same conclusions. And we argue about how we do our worshiping. Kind of silly, isn't it? I am concerned about a lot that is going on recently in our education system. Because there are those who will not let you talk about and teach the things that have made this nation great. And lots of places you can't put up a manger scene in a public square. You can't let the kids sing Christmas carols or so forth. And as such, a lot of the great music is never learned or even heard by high school graduates. I can remember and sing my part in almost every song in the Messiah, for instance. A lot of kids graduate